All right, Chelsea fans, here we go. The Christian Pulisic quotes. I know a lot of people have covered it. I kind of want to stay away from it, but I'm going to do it. So here we go. All right. Well, as you all know by now, Christian Pulisic conveniently dropped some quotes about his upcoming book during the international break. No surprise there. What better time to drop quotes about your current employer, your former head coach, than while away from Cobham? No surprise there, really. If anybody is naive enough to think that this was leaked happenstance, incorrect. This was a strategy. What I want to talk about, though, in general, is is he the first player to do this? No. So let's just walk through, kind of push to the side the fact that, players do a lot of different things to make money. They do a lot of things to, promote what's important to them, whether it be personal success on the pitch, commercial success off the pitch, their brand, just a lot of different things can be at play when it comes to these things. So, just kind of keep that in mind. The other thing I would say is that I'm not going to go in there and bash the guy, but I think that we can just go through what we do know and say he's, at the end of the day, made the decision and he's going to live with it. And I'm sure he knew going into this some of the, kind of downstream effects that might happen. So he's a smart guy. He's got smart people around him. He made the decision. He'll handle it. But let's cover what was talked instead of digging into the mudsling, shall we? So the first thing we have to talk about is the fact that, from my perspective, this is a huge gamble. Gab Marcotti from ESPN FC talked about how Christian wrote this while Tuchel was still employed at Chelsea. There's lead times to these books, right? The Champions League final was a year and a half ago. So there's obviously been time to say, hey, we're doing a book. We're going to launch it right before the World Cup. It'll be perfect. All eyes are going to be on Christian. From a marketing publishing standpoint, nailed the strategy. But these quotes, right? When this was discussed and things are, he maybe put a bunch of stuff out there and they weren't sure what was going to be included. I don't know. This late in the game, I feel like they knew this is going to be included. Up until a couple weeks ago, Thomas Tuchel was the coach. That would have probably been a little bit awkward. So then you go to say, maybe Christian wasn't planning on being at the club at this point. Maybe Christian was hoping that Tuchel wouldn't be manager at this point. Or maybe he just said, you know what? Calculated risk. I don't care. Him and I have talked behind the scenes. He knew how I felt. He knew what he said. There's nothing new here information wise. So I'm going to go with it. I don't know. I just know that he clearly felt really confident in his ability to publish this at the time, which I think is interesting because I would never be able to get away with putting quotes out there about my job. But of course, I'm not one of the best 100 people in the world at what I do. So he has a little bit of job security there. I just think that was a very calculated risk that he had to take there. So obviously Tuchel's not there. He can avoid a lot of it. And I think now people can look back and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. We understand why Christian wanted to leave. We understand why, him and Tuchel didn't get along. I mean, there's a lot of quotes. If you go back in the history, Tuchel's been asked a lot about Christian over the years. He said it's unfair. He's not playing more at times. He said, he should have scored. He's been hard on him. He's kind of been through the ringer in the public media with Tuchel, and clearly any kind of connection they had at Dortmund did not follow through to Chelsea. But again, we don't really know what Tuchel was asking of Christian. We don't really know what Christian wanted from Tuchel and things like that. So we can't speculate. All I know is that massive gamble, and apparently it broke in Christian's favor that Tuchel is not at the club anymore. The next thing, you probably want to know, why did he write the book? Well, we don't know. We also don't know what's in it, right? This might be the most controversial thing out there, and the rest of it is just much more of hey, here's what's kind of happened in the last few years, right? The name of the book is my career so far, or up to, so it's clearly not, it's going to be the first of many, right? It's not a definitive career overview. It's very much hey, here's up to now. So the majority, it could be his time in Pennsylvania. His time could be at Borussia Dortmund, right? There's a lot of stuff that can be in there. This might be the juiciest snippet, especially on international break right after Tuchel got sacked, that's in there. The rest of it could be pretty chill and calm. We don't know. So I just kind of want to like put that out there for everyone, is that we don't know what's in it. We only know what's been leaked. And of course they're going to leak the juiciest parts first to get publicity, right? They're getting a ton of people talking about it, like me, and it's going to drive the interest up for this book massively. So that's kind of why we're in this situation. But like the rest of it could be great, and it could just be factual and a narrative of what he's done. So I obviously have to hold judgment. I want to read it when it comes out and see what's in there just in general, because I'm an American fan, U.S. men's national team fan, and a Chelsea fan. Like, we're in such a weird situation where we want the captain of our national team playing. We want him being as successful as possible. It's the same thing with English fans. They want Harry Kane to be as successful as possible because he's the national team captain. But at the same time, he plays for a rival. So I bet a lot of English fans are conflicted. It's the same thing with us and Christian. We want Chelsea to be successful. We want Christian to be successful. We want the national team to be successful. We have to balance it just like everybody else. So like, yeah, we're going to back our guy. And for people to be like, oh, American fans, you know, you terrible perspectives on this. It'd be the same thing if Harry Kane or how about this? When Mason Mount is England national team captain, like, it's going to be tricky and finicky for you as well. So like, you know, give us some slack because you're going to need it soon when Mace or Reece, I'll give Reece a shot too, our captain of England. If they go through a rough patch, it's going to be tough. You're going to be defending on both sides, and it's not fun. My other guess is this is clearly tied to the World Cup and the promotion leading up to the World Cup. If Christian is looking to use this to maybe make money or to raise money that he can donate back to foundations, do philanthropic things. Look, there's a lot of different things that Christian could be using this for. Clearly, he doesn't need to grow his profile. He's the most popular player in America and one of the most popular in the world. So clearly they wanted to launch this pre-World Cup when his profile is at the biggest. So timing makes sense to me. Players also have a lot of different ways to get their perspective out. We know Christian isn't a massive fan of doing sit-down interviews. Go look at the Herculez Gomez one of ESPN FC. Horrific. Herc did a terrible job of just trying to like have a conversation with Christian. He didn't let him relax. He like hit him right away with controversial things. Christian doesn't like the media because the media pokes and prods in places that he really wishes they didn't. There's, you know, journalists asking him questions. There was in Vegas, right? What do you think about guns in the U.S. and mass shootings? He doesn't want to answer those things. I get you may want him to have an opinion or a public opinion, but it's pretty much a lose-lose situation if he comments on things like that. And at the same time, he's trying to be the captain of a very diverse locker room of players. And he's trying to also represent and appeal to the United States as a whole. So journalists haven't really been great. Media interviews definitely haven't been great. So he also has an opportunity to control the narrative from start to finish, and he's opted for a book. Quite honestly, it makes sense to me. Christian's a private guy. He's a quiet guy. He just wants to put his head down and play. It makes sense that he's decided to use a book as his medium to get his message out there. And I think that if you pause and take a second, are you comparing this to the Lukaku interview? To me, I think that's a little far-fetched. I understand the connections with it, but I think that there's a very big difference between Lukaku sitting down in the middle of the season, oozing over his former club, wishes he never left, while he's been at the club for 2.5 months, not even at that point, right? Christian has been at Chelsea for 3 seasons, almost 3.5 now. Like, he's been with the club. He's put in his time. He's had his ups. He's had his downs. Like, he has every right to tell his side of the story however he wants. Lukaku did it, under the auspices of an interview with Sky Italia, and then got banned from essentially doing any other interviews after that. Like, way more malicious with Lukaku. Now, what I would say with Christian, do you want to call it naive? Fine. People can call it naive, but trust me, he has thought this through and knows what he's doing. So he's made his decision. He's going to work through it the way he wants to. But to me, this is way more calculated than anything Lukaku's done. Like, let's not get that twisted. And at the end of the day, it's going to sell, right? This is why he's writing the book, because he knows it's going to sell. Look, I would have been interested in his biography before these quotes came out, right? Just like pretty much every American soccer fan would be. Now this is probably going to include global sales. It's probably going to get a bump in sales from places it wouldn't normally. And that's what his publisher and his PR team was supposed to do. It definitely causes pain, and it causes friction as Chelsea fans. It causes even more friction and more pain as American Chelsea fans. But it's something that we have to just sit back and see how it all plays out. And, you know, when this book comes out, this might all be blown out of proportion and swept under the rug because it really wasn't that big a part of the book. Maybe there's more context around it. I mean, we're getting a snippet, and that's what I want to touch on, right? So the first excerpt it's talking about the Real Madrid match. I think pretty much the quotes that came out around the first and second leg in the Champions League run, when we won it, we're playing Real Madrid, right? So the first quote is Pulisic talking about the goal in the first leg. Quote, "But as I take off on the run, I hear Thomas Tuchel yelling from the sideline, 'Christian, stay in the pocket, don't make the run.' But I just had the feeling I'd find the space and get on the end of the pass. So I continued the run," end quote. That's coming from Pro Soccer Wire, right? That came out on the Newswire. That's what they decided to release. Players have to play on instincts. Christian is a very instinctual player. Obviously, at that point, Tuchel wanted players to play conservatively. They didn't want to gamble for anything. He gambled and it paid off. To me, it's not a big deal. This happens how many times in a match? How many times in a match does a manager ask a player to do something, the player reads the situation differently, and they go and they take a different action? Happens over and over and over. Sometimes it pays off like it did here. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's a big decision. Other times it's not a big decision, right? So you just never know. But to me, this really isn't that big of a quote. Like, any of you that have played soccer for a coach, you've heard your coach tell you maybe before the match, "Hey, this is how we want to do it this way." Okay, but opportunities come and go, and doors open and doors close. Christian saw an opportunity that Tuchel didn't because Tuchel's on the sideline. He exploited it, and it paid off. All right, so hard to really complain, and honestly, I don't think this is a big deal whatsoever. And then the second one, which is probably the one that everyone is gravitating towards a lot more because it kind of defines that there's a rift between Christian and Tuchel. So here's the second quote. It's Pulisic on being benched for the second leg in the Champions League semifinal against Real Madrid. Quote, "What happened before that game was hugely disappointing for me. I'd had a really good first leg performance, and our following match was against Fulham in the Premier League. Tuchel told me that he was resting me for the second leg, and as a result, I didn't play a single minute in the Fulham game. Then, on match day of the second semifinal leg, Tuchel tells me he's changed his mind and he's going with Kai Havertz. I honestly was dumbfounded and very disappointed. I thought that I'd earned a start, and most importantly, he had assured me previously I was going to start. So by the time he brought me on with about 25 minutes left, I was just so wound up," end quote. And by the way, goes on to get an assist in that one as well. Pulisic obviously had a huge role in the Champions League run. The Real Madrid really the defining two legs for him in that run. And you got to look at this and say, from Pulisic's perspective, like, how would you feel, right? Is Tuchel to blame in this situation? His man management up to that point was phenomenal. But if you pull a player aside and say, "Hey, I'm not going to play you this weekend because I want you fresh for Madrid," and then you don't tell him essentially until match day, "Hey, I'm going to go with Kai." Isn't that bad man management? Like, right or wrong, Tuchel has a ton of experience, but of course, to me, this is as predictable as Christian publishing the book when he is. Everyone's coming at Christian right now, but at the same time, from Christian's perspective, you could be having a go at Tuchel, saying, "Well, you told me, you backed that action up against Fulham, and then on game day, nah, I'm good, I'm going to switch it." From Christian's perspective, he's upset, and he should be. Players at the highest level want to play. It's one of the biggest games of his career. He's in good form at that time. Why wouldn't he want to play? I just think that you can't get mad at a player for wanting to play after the manager told him he was going to play. Isn't he allowed to feel upset and frustrated? No, this is where it gets dirty. It gets murky, right? A lot of fans and soccer people and pundits out there are projecting onto Christian what he should have felt at that time. It's not up to them, right? A manager's job is to manage their squad. We've heard Graham Potter come out and talk about it. You have to manage the person as much as you have to manage the team. I think it's like he won't be the first and he won't be the last player to complain that a manager promised them game time and then took it away from them. It's happened under Mourinho. A lot of young promising players left Chelsea because they were told they're going to get time and then they didn't get time. Like I just, take away your Pulisic perspective, whether you like him or don't. If you were in this situation, or any player, maybe the one that you like, if you don't like Christian, they would have reacted the same way. And for people to blow this up like is a big deal, like, This is again, this is more controversial, I understand, but this is a non-starter. Like, of course he's upset. He wants to play. He's a professional soccer/football player. The manager told me he's going to play. He didn't let him play. I don't know. Like, to me, this is super straightforward. At the end of the day, he went on. Maybe Tuchel was winding him up on purpose so that when he did put him on, he would just be, kind of like insane and super motivated. Maybe Tuchel's a master manipulator, right? Master motivator, I should say. We don't know because we don't have Tuchel's side. All we're getting is Christian's side. So until Tuchel responds, if he does, probably won't. I'm sure he'll claim credit that, no, he's just a master motivator, right? He got Pulisic in a spot where he was going to work so hard, chase everything down. He was going to make sure that he had a positive impact on the game, which he did, and he'll take credit. So again, I think that this is probably exactly, if Tuchel was still in charge, how he would say it. He'd be like, of course Christian is upset. Of course this happened, but like at the end of the day, did he produce? I guess I did the right thing. So, like I said, everyone I think is making a big deal out of it. I really don't think it's that big of a deal, but I understand that Pulisic is a lightning rod. So anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. Was he right? Was he wrong? Is this good for Pulisic? Is it bad? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. He made the decision. He's doing it. All we want as American Chelsea fans is Pulisic to crush it on the field. I'm going to get it. I'm going to read it because I'm really interested to learn more about our national team captain. But for the rest of you out there, let me know what you think. Until next time, we have a ton of Chelsea content. We just had a Cobham update on the Youth Academy with @Chelsea Youth. Go check it out in the podcast. More content coming as well. But we're going to move on. It's another international break, no soccer. I'm bored just like you. So jump on our Discord, link in the description below if you want to chat with Chelsea fans all week. I'm out.